So the next question I have is about sort of the European Union, as we've been discussing it a little bit. So we saw on the 21st of July this year that the EU member states came together with an unprecedented united response with their 750 billion recovery plan called Next Generation EU. So my question is, do you think people are optimistic about their future in Europe and the strength of the EU? And generally, how do you think Europeans feel towards their governments and the EU's response to the pandemic? Is it positive or a bit disappointing?
Okay, well, that's kind of one of the interesting questions. There are many, but there are one of the issues that we have seen here is that the initial, and again, I have to dwell on the fact that this is really the initial findings that we had. These may improve. But when we looked at this, over half of European Union respondents to our survey said that they were concerned about their future. They, if you like, they were, I suppose, showing some level of drop in optimism about the future. And that, in a way, has a doubly sad reflection for us all, because post the economic crisis, we were just beginning to see an upward trend again in terms of getting back on track and people feeling generally more optimistic about the future and seeing how things could evolve positively down the tracks, both for themselves but also for their children and their grandchildren. So we're beginning to see a fall off there. And what's particularly interesting there is that during this immediate period of the impact of the lockdown and the crisis, we saw that the trust in the healthcare system was actually at a relatively high level for most Europeans. It would be considered as very positive, and trust in the police likewise was seen to be quite positive, more positive than usual in terms of what we're looking at in terms of the scales here. But the trust in national government and the trust in EU was relatively low. So whereas we would usually see that, if you like, almost these being inverted, and you're looking at trust in national government at being slightly higher in this case, generally speaking, than trust in the European Union. And usually that's not the case, as I said, it's usually inverted. And I think possibly, there are lots of potential reasons for this. It could be certainly that there's a fear for the future, and fear for the future always makes people, go into themselves to some degree. But what is the actual reason for the trust in the EU declining in this way? Perhaps it's that it's less obvious in a crisis like this. Certainly at that particular point in time, we have to remember that yes, there is a package in place now, but that package took a long time for the member states to negotiate, and that could also have had its impact on how people were feeling at that particular moment in time about how evident the solidarity, if you like, at EU level was for the individual. So I would hope perhaps that in the second phase we would see some level of increase there, where you see that the impact of this global sort of, or this pan-European package of assistance and support may actually have a positive impact on how people feel about the future and their faith and trust in the European Union.
Okay, interesting. I wouldn't have thought about the police having a higher level of trust in comparison.
Yeah, well, I mean, the statistics that we have on this, for example, the trust in national government at an EU level would be at 4.8, and trust in the police would be 6.2. Trust in the healthcare system would be 6.4, and trust in the EU would be 4.6. So you can see there's quite a difference there in terms of the ratings.
And I think you are completely right that at the very beginning, when the pandemic suddenly came March, April, people kind of maybe had higher expectations of the European response, the EU response immediately, and it did take a while. So hopefully now, once the package becomes implemented, I think later on in the year next year, people will see an improvement in their experience if they're unemployed, or helping them find jobs and have a different perception of the European solidarity.
Exactly.
We'll have to wait and see for that. Yes, I think that is all the questions I have for you today. So thank you very much for giving your time and energy to answering them. Very interesting. So I've definitely learned a lot from our conversation, and I'm sure all the people watching have as well. But I just find it really interesting that the pandemic, it's not limited to a small number of countries in a remote part of the world. It's like the whole world is having a similar experience, which is very rare. And just to learn a bit more how we're helping each other and how we're impacted in our own ways is very, very interesting. And like I said, very worthwhile to look into and to make sure we understand for policies for our countries.
I think, Sophie, and what's particularly interesting for me is to be carrying out an interview like this with a young woman. And a young woman, according to the initial results of the survey, young people have been particularly badly hit by the crisis, and women have been particularly badly hit by the crisis. So it's something that I hope we will see change, and that the impact will not be as radical on these groups as was in the initial phase, but certainly for the youth of the European Union and for women within Europe, we have seen it impacting on them in the initial phase quite significantly. So if you like, it's reassuring for me to be speaking to a young woman who is looking to try and address and deal with the issues that we are confronting in a positive way. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much for bringing that up. I wasn't aware, but of the women part, but the young people, I do see a lot of my friends either having to lay off or change jobs, or universities are very different, and especially if you graduate now, the labour market looks quite different, so a lot of adapting, but hopefully it will be a positive change in the future. It might take a while to kind of get used to the new normal, but well, I think we'll hopefully get there.
I'm sure, I have no doubt that you will.
Thank you. So I would just encourage anyone that's interested in all things you talk about to get familiar with the fantastic work that Eurofound does. So I'll put their website link below, and the report we've been talking about as well, so you can find out more details. And yes, so thanks again.
Don't forget to subscribe to our Instagram page as well as other social media such as Twitter. You can also sign up to our association for free as an ordinary member, and you will get first-hand information about our projects and events.